Just going to remember to record this. So we were spurred into action in the summer with a lot of people getting ill and really getting concerned about water quality. What happened next was that, we wanted to find out what exactly is in the water. So we began talking to lots of different people and coming back to this idea of bathing water designation. We kind of, as a group, we sort of stepped away from it and then came back to it when there was this concern about water quality. And since then, we've made some amazing progress. And this is an opportunity to really, because we're a community group and we want to, we want the community to be involved. And it's really important to us that we're listening to your questions and any concerns that you have, ideas that you have that you want to bring forwards. So it's very much about inclusivity and about connecting us all, because I really believe personally that when we're all in good connection, then we can make amazing things happen. And we're all focused on all of the different groups and organizations that we're talking to are all focused on the health of the river. And it's really exciting to see what we can do when we come together. So Kirsty Davies is joining us from Surfers Against Sewage. I'd like to invite you, Kirsty, to introduce yourself and just maybe tell us a bit about your background, your role, and maybe about Surfers Against Sewage.
Hi all, nice to meet you. Nice to see so many of you here today. My role at Surfers Against Sewage is to support community groups to apply for bathing water designation at inland locations. So it's a brand new role at SAS. SAS, you might be very aware, the clues in the title in terms of Surfers Against Sewage is a water quality grassroots campaign where activism at grassroots community level, like Hannah said, in terms of community inclusion, is so important in terms of water quality matters, as well as other kind of wider conservation issues as well. So SAS kind of came to a realization that we need to do more. We're not just surfers, we're not just sewage. We focus on plastic-free communities as well, and other kind of areas, but also the surface side of things. Ensuring that there's more of a focus inland, because without the seas, there's no rivers, there's no seas. There's kind of that connection, and we obviously are aware that water quality, is going unmonitored in our rivers and in our inland waters, due to various resource issues from regulators. So that was the kind of the key around kind of what can we do as an ocean conservation charity to broaden our reach, I suppose, around kind of, we know that people are passionate to improve their water quality, and not just at coastal locations. So that's what my role is. I support communities directly through the application process. So I'm a swimmer, I'm an open water swimmer. I swim most days. I swim in Cornwall. I live on the south coast, so I'm incredibly passionate myself. Kind of like giving the water a miss if there's been heavy downfall, and it just affects you. I think especially with physical and mental health benefits around cold water swimming as well. Why should we be just avoiding the water when we need it most, especially in the winter? I've not been in the sea for a few days because we've had sewage alerts where I live. Surfers Against Sewage is all about providing the information around human health as well. I think that's obviously a really important thing in terms of what Hannah said around kind of being able to risk assess your own risk in using water, and that's what bathing water can do and help with. And bathing water, as we'll talk about a bit more, I'm sure, in a minute, is a mechanism and a tool to improve water quality. It's not a silver bullet. It's not a fix-all overnight fix. It's a way of shining a light on water quality issues.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. And can you talk a little bit about, before we move on to questions, can you talk a little bit about what actually it means? So if we were to certify a bathing spot, what does it actually mean? What are the implications?
Yes, so once a site has received bathing water designation, there's various requirements, but we perhaps can go on into a second, Hannah. But in terms of actually once a site is designated, so in England, an application is made to DEFRA, And the things that change after a site is the benefits of getting a site designated is that the waterway is monitored and tested by the regulator, which is the Environment Agency in England. So it's tested for E. coli and intestinal enterococci. So those are the two sort of human health E. coli bacteria that can make people really sick. Also, as well, there's an obligation with the regulator to find the source of pollution. So this is all as the bathing water regulations in 2013 were drawn up, and this is all in that regulation. It's not a legal obligation that both the regulator and polluters then are held to account. So that's the really important thing, that the source of pollution is then identified or investigated, and there's responsibility put onto the polluter to improve the water quality. So once the site is designated, you get a classification of either excellent, good, sufficient, or poor. Those 4 classifications are derived from that weekly testing that the Environment Agency do. So they don't only test 20 times a year during the bathing season, which is the 15th of May to 30th of September. So again, at SAS, we're campaigning, to overhaul that testing regime. We know people swim in our waterways all year round, so we're pushing the government that it has to be a year-round testing regime to test more than just E. coli and enterococci as well. It has to test things like phosphates, nitrates, to get a full picture of what the pollution sources are. That's another arm of what the work we're doing. So yeah, those are the main kind of differences, sort of benefits.
Also, I'm just curious, Kirsty, how people could support that, because obviously it makes a huge difference if we're testing for 3 months or if we're testing year round on a weekly basis. How can people take action to support that campaign that you're taking action on?
It's MP engagement, so it's obviously a regulation government level. It's a political kind of level change, so engaging with your MP around the requirements, proving that you've got a population of swimmers all year round, that it's just not a snapshot, it's what May to September, it's just a small snapshot, isn't it? It's when the dry, potentially, I don't know, not always the driest months of the year. So in theory, there's things like overflows that don't get used as much in theory, but obviously in the winter people are still using the waterways, aren't they? And heavy rainfall at the moment, we should be testing the water quality at the moment, but there's things we can talk about around water quality testing, which I know you've been looking into, Hannah, that will really help out of season to kind of prove to your MP. It kind of creates a case that there is a problem out of season, and then year-round testing, how important it is.
Right. Yeah, and I just wanted to bring in here that there's a really comprehensive testing project underway on the Dart, and we're both Surfacing Against Sewage and Friends of the Dart are very much in contact with South West Water around this. So they've implemented 20 different continuous flow monitors, which are currently in the Dart, and yeah, I'm very pleased to say, after a meeting yesterday, I'm very pleased to say that on the 28th of January, that live data will be accessible by the public. So this is a really positive step in assessing what exactly is in the river, so that we can discern how we take the next steps and what happens next. So yeah, that's very exciting. I've got a couple of questions from people who couldn't make the call, but I think we will. So if you'd like to ask a question, you should be able to, in the chat box at the bottom, you should be able to raise a hand at the bottom of your screen. Does that make sense to everybody? Can you see a place you can do that? Okay, so we've got Caroline here. Hi, Caroline.
Hi, Hannah. Hi, Kirsty.
Hi,
everyone. Can I just go back to a couple of things you said, just because I was making notes and it was very fast, and I just want to clarify something.
Yeah, of course.
So you said that once you get once the site gets the designation of water bathing quality designation, that is it the polluter who will be, if pollution is found? Could you just go back over that? What happens then if pollution is found? Who is held responsible? Who has to investigate? And what are the methods of? Is there any method of enforcement, or is it just a case of they have to admit that they're polluted? You know, what happens then?
Yes, so once the first classification has been given, so that's the excellent, good, sufficient or poor, has been given, the regulators of the Environment Agency then have a duty and a responsibility to investigate the sources of pollution that causes, you know, if it's a poor classification, they have a legal responsibility and obligation to investigate who's polluting, who's the source of pollution, so who's polluting the waterways, and they have a responsibility to reduce, eliminate, or remove is what's stated in the regulations, that pollution source.
The Environment Agency does, or the polluter?
They have a responsibility to investigate it, and then the polluter has a responsibility to remove, reduce, or eliminate it in line with the EA and what they investigate. So I think with Ilkley, for example, I'm sure you've all heard of Ilkley. They were the first river in the UK. I'd like to say the campaigning stops once you receive designation, but it doesn't. I think, if you get 5 years for a site to be designated as poor, and then it gets automatically de-designated. So before then, we need to do as much work on the ground to make sure the EA are doing their job properly and have a responsibility to do that. And there is signs that Ilkley is working in terms of that's happening. So the Ilkley community group are working with the EA, and they are doing things. They're investing in infrastructure. It's really positive. So that's a good kind of example, I think, just to have some sort of reassurance. But again, I think it's really important to keep creating noise once you get a designation, so to get a good connection with your local EA representative, to kind of keep close to seeing developments happening and ensuring there's improvements afoot.
And it might be a helpful input here to say that in my discussion with Nick Palin at South West Water yesterday, he said that there is a considerable chunk, I think 2.4 billion, put aside for improving infrastructure on the Dart. So that's not based on our campaigning. This is what I'm hearing, is that that's not based on our campaigning or bathing designation. That's just simply been allocated for the improvement of infrastructure.
And the testing you're going to do, Hannah, is that testing for the same kind of things that for the E. coli and the other one whose name I can't, andrococci or something?
Yeah.
So what we've been discussing is testing a much broader spectrum of what's in the water, and the details of that, the continuous flow. I haven't actually got a list of the details of what the continuous flow monitors test. So my hope is that in this agreement with South West Water, we'll be able to have direct access to a very comprehensive set of pollutants that are found in the water, if they're found in the water. And if that doesn't work, then there's also a potential for Friends of the Dart to have its own set of testing equipment that is equally as comprehensive. So but yeah, I can compile a list of what that would be and get that to you, if that's helpful.
I maybe don't need a whole list, but I was just thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Caroline. We have Paul's got a hand raised here. Hi, Paul.
Hello. I'm Paul. I'm harbour master at Dartmouth, so I look after the lower estuaries all the way up to the weir. I'm equally keen to have bathing water designation for my bit of the river. Obviously, above that, I'm less interested, but I'm most definitely on side. I've got some early access to the data for what's coming off of the meters in our section of the river. But the tidal water, they're not that useful, to be honest with you. There's a lot, basically most of it just follows the tidal cycles, but you can see spikes, but it's not as good as I was hoping it was going to be, shall we say. But okay. So still, we've been fighting South West Water for several months, in fact, since about August, to try and get access to the data. And they tried giving us great big long NDAs to sign. And I said, well, I'm not having the data if I can't actually use it. So eventually they just gave us the data, and it's good that they're now going to be giving that so it's a bit wider. And just saying that, yeah, basically we're very keen to help. I'm more than happy for us to invest in equipment as well as to do our own testing if we can get something that's more useful in the lower Dart. Brilliant.
That's really great to hear. And it's really great to meet you. You've been on my radar. And it's an
sorry, I didn't know that the group existed. It was Nigel Mortimer from the area of outstanding natural beauty yesterday said, are you going to this meeting? So he invited me along.
And it's also interesting to note that we don't have to just have one bathing water designation spot on the Dart. We can have multiple spots. I don't know, Kirsty, if there's a limit on that, or a limit on how many we can apply for at once.
No, there's no limit.
It's also an option.
Absolutely, and I think that's really important, especially if you want to. The whole DEFRA have a kind of a requirement around access points. So when you choose your length of river, I wouldn't choose a mile, because in terms of if it's just one access point, for swimmers, that's obviously a long distance, isn't it, then for places to get out and access the river banks. So, and also to be mindful that per bathing application is only one testing location. So, a mile stretch of river, if there's only one location where the EA, then Environment Agency, then test the water quality, if you've got multiple sites, 3 sites, absolutely apply. If they're 500-meter, stretches, it'd definitely be more recommended. And also think about large numbers. That's kind of a prerequisite in applying. Definitely want to see large numbers. They don't give an actual figure, but relative to the size. So think about kind of where large numbers congregate, and they only count dippers, bathers and swimmers. They don't count in terms of the number of users, kayakers, paddleboarders or anglers or anything like that. It's specifically people, swimmers, dippers, bathers. So yeah, that's something to think about when you choose your locations. But you can choose as many as you like. It wouldn't be great to have like multiple sites on the Dart that you kind of chunk up and have multiple applications. It'd be fantastic.
Brilliant. Great. Thank you, Paul. That's really valuable.
Just in relation to Paul, in terms of that data, sorry to interrupt, Hannah, that data, Paul. So if you that data, is it kind of like in a format where it's easily and easily
I can share my screen now if you'd like to look at it.
Yeah, I don't know, Hannah, is that a good idea?
Yeah,
go for it. I was just just trying to think of like, if you've got kind of things have you got the kind of the kit or the tools, Paul, to analyze it? Is it useful, I suppose?
Ish. It seems like screen sharing is disabled, but I can certainly point the camera at the screen so you can see what it looks like, hopefully. So basically, it's it's not quite long enough. So there's the most recent section for Totnes, and there's a few curves that I've turned off, but the green one is chlorophyll, the orange one is ammonia, the brown one is turbidity, red is temperature, so you can just see where that's effectively the fresh water going up and down. The blue one is conductivity, so which is basically how salty the water is, more or less. So you can see on the 7th, just about here, there's a great big spike in pretty much everything. So that was, I believe, a very heavy rain day. You can see that the water became very fresh at that point, but then there's a great big spike in chlorophyll, which I haven't seen before, and then big spike in turbidity. So definitely not a good day for swimming. And looking at what's happening at the moment, heavy rain, and things are starting to head in that direction again as well. So it's not easy data to just be able to say yes or no, but it's certainly an awful lot better than nothing.
So just thinking about real meaningful ways, isn't it, of how then you kind of like publish that information to people, isn't it, in an accessible way? I'm sure that's obviously on your mind, Paul, of how you get it out there, I suppose, to help with your campaign.
And there's obviously
that's why at the moment it's only sitting on my computer. I'm using it at the moment, so when I know about events that are going on, then I can tell the event organizer to give me a call on the morning to say this is what it looks like at the moment, which is again much better than nothing. And there's obviously some more specific questions around, because the things that have been highlighted that we're testing were things like fecal matter and the genetic material of exactly where that's coming from, and that doesn't appear to be showing on your monitor. No, apparently you can't get that on automatic test equipment, so it can
No.
analyse for chemicals, but it can't analyse for bacteria.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, the more
At least
lab
not simply. I know
testing.
there's one that's like almost like a gun cartridge, so you can sort of do 6 shots, and then you have to go in and replace the thing again, the system again. But there isn't. That tends to be somebody going around with a beaker. I'm happy for my staff to be the people with a beaker, but
Great.
it's obviously a little bit of a process in there. Something that is probably worth saying, I think it would be considerably better to have a poor quality bathing water designation than no bathing water designation. To know that the river's a bad place to go swimming officially would be much better than to have no idea at all whether it's a good or a bad place. Obviously, the idea would be to have excellent standard bathing water, but to have no information at all is the very worst for my mind.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
the
much.
monitoring is vital, isn't it, Paul?
Let's move on to take some other questions. Kevin, you've got a hand raised.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much to Hannah for this work, and Kirsty and anyone else who's involved in this meeting, particularly when it's part of their work. I'm participating as a resident of Totnes. I had some questions about the definition of what is a site, and what strategically it makes sense to apply for, but I think that you've sort of addressed that to some extent. I was also wondering on the data side whether it might be a good idea to set up a portal where people can report getting sick or report visual sightings.
So that's already something that's in process to some extent.
Fantastic, because last summer that I just put a post out in Totnesia and said who's got sick this week, and so many people said I did, my son did, my son did. Sadly, so yeah, that would be brilliant.
So just to address that, we seem to have a bit of an echo on the line here. Just to address that point around gathering data of people's actual experience, there's a proposed plan through the Southwest Water project to post QR codes along the riverbank so it would be, I think we'd have 6 different spots along just this part of the estuary between Staverton and Totnes, and it would enable swimmers who come to the river to report whether they came to swim and they decided not to go in because it smelt, because because the water was too high, because it looked too murky, whether they went in and they noticed some sort of issue. So it's taking into account that aspect. And in my conversation with Nick yesterday, we raised the issue of people getting ill in the summer, and they're looking into the data, because the drinking water for Totnes is pulled out of the river. So they're obviously they're testing that water more frequently as it goes into the drinking water supply. So we're looking at matching up that to see what it could have been, but yeah, more importantly going forwards.
Okay.
And then we did that. Sorry, SAS. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, SAS, we also collect that information. So we collect sick reports from members of the public, so we could issue that information anonymously, just so you can see the kind of the quantity rather than the actual details of people maybe in your area that have got sick. So we can help with that as well. So we collect that on our Safer Seas River Service app.
That's good to know.
We also collect photos as well. So any kind of people that are at their local location, sort of like a bathing location, we if they see a site visually a pollution, they take a photo and send it in to us as well. So yeah, we can, with consent from those people, we can send you some info as well.
Brilliant.
Great. Thank you.
Could I just mention one other thing? I don't know if you've come across the West Country Rivers Trust has a project, a citizen science project called West Country CSI. I don't know if you're linked with.
We're all part of the CSI.
You are. Oh, fantastic. Yeah. So you're linked in with Chris Alton. Yeah. Okay. That was the other thing I wanted to mention. yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
work
you.
is really appreciated.
Alfred.
Hi, yeah, I'd just also like to echo thanks on this project too. And yeah, I was wondering about the, as a swimmer, I'm, obviously keen to know when it's safe to go in and when it's not. And I was wondering, with the data that's currently available, are there any kind of like automatic notifications that might be able to be sent out from this, or a kind of like, as already been spoken about, some sort of portal? But if it was kind of accessible and with an API, it would be quite, the public would be able to do something with that. So I was just wondering how that how that live data could like trigger out notifications to social media, or
I think that's a really interesting point, is kind of, and I don't think they're quite at, from what I hear, they're not quite at that point yet, but it's definitely an intention to move in that direction, so that it's really clearly defined and available in relation to the live data. But I think from what I was hearing, on the 28th, the website that launches, which is the WaterFit Live, it's very much an experiment, and there is a bit of nervousness for them in doing that, and what backlash that might indicate. So but also clarity around wanting to engage with the community and wanting to make that data available,
and make lots of critical friends.
So our Safer Seas and Rivers service, we receive data from water companies as an API, actually, Alfred, to pull in. There's a monitor on sewage overflows. This is what Hannah mentioned about the Beachwise Live. So once that monitor detects untreated sewage, we get alerts on our Safer Seas and Rivers service app. So the Thames Water actually in the last week has released 360 of their overflows in the Thames water region. So even they don't relate to water, recreational spaces, you can go on their website and look exactly when a sewage alert has gone off. But yeah, we get that data from Safest Water, for example, in this region. So if we can get that data for inland locations, we're trying to do that more. We chat to Safest Water more. So if we can get in those locations on the DAR, that data fed in, we can get that on the Safer Seas and Rivers service, and you'll get a notification when there's been sewage untreated
that would be
discharge.
so great, Kirsty.
Yeah, be good, wouldn't it? Especially, I think, inland. I think obviously there's, lots of potential to include that increase that transparency.
Thank you. We're just going to zoom along a little bit because we've got lots of people with raised hands. I've got Nigel Mortimer here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nigel Mortimer. I'm the Estuaries Officer for South Devon Area of Outstanding Natural Beauty. And we host two groups that members here might be interested in. One is the Dart Estuary Forum. We have meetings twice a year to discuss issues and look at ways that we can sort of restore the estuary as a whole. Water quality is hugely important to all of us, not just for swimming, but for the shellfish that we eat and the fish that use the estuary and everything. So we're very involved in all aspects of water quality. And also the other group that we co-host with West Country Rivers Trust, the South Devon Catchments Partnership. And that tends to meet 3 or 4 times a year. So if you're interested, please do join those groups. When we were talking about indicators of when it's safe to swim, I think it's probably easier to think of having an indicator when it's not safe to swim. I think we need to remember that, it would be dangerous to have a green flag because even otters poo. And if you swam through that, even though the water might be otherwise clean, you can still have issues. So I think more likely is to have a red and an orange and sort of take care. But I will put my email and contact details on the chat. And if anybody would like to get in touch, then please do. and happy to answer any questions myself. Thank you.
That's really, really helpful. Thank you, Nigel. We have Anne-Marie.
Hi, I'll try my video. It's been going a bit wrong today, but yeah, I'm Totnes resident and swimmer in the Dart, and a couple of questions really. Can you tell me what data is going to be available on the 28th? A little bit more about that. And the other thing I'm interested in is about the citizen science project. If anybody knows anything more about that, you know, perhaps possibilities of collecting samples myself or something.
Yeah, so the West Country Rivers Trust run the citizen science project, and we can certainly provide you with a contact to engage with that. That might be something that Nigel has to hand and could put in the chat for us. And the question around what data will be available in our conversations with Southwest Water, my understanding is that whatever's being tested by the continuous flow monitor will be available. But I think there's some details in that that we don't yet fully have a clear answer to. But that will become clearer as things progress. So I think partly we're all kind of making it up as we go along to some extent, and you know, the data that we'll have to see what data they make available and whether there's other data that comes from those continuous flow monitors that can be included or isn't being included, or other data that we need to have a comprehensive idea and either work in partnership with other organizations who are already doing that testing, or do that, you know, add some testing ourselves. Have you got anything to add there, Kirsty?
No, I think absolutely. I think there's people out there who are absolute experts in water quality analysis and testing, and tapping into those organisations is really important. And it's very likely that they'll be, you know, very, very supportive of your application as well. So it's always good.
So Anne-Marie, I think the thing would be to keep an eye on our Facebook page, and you know, we'll put as many updates there as we can as the information emerges. We have Roger's got his hand up. Hi, Roger. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, that's it. I'm mute now. Yeah, hi Anna. Thanks for your work and everybody else who's, you know, doing that. I two points or two questions. One is I know just the historical. The Thames, for instance, was a sewer once, and eventually got cleaned up more and more. And I thought rivers were going the same way. I don't know if that had been the case, and it's actually gone backwards or not. Whether rivers have recently got worse or not. So that was just one question. But the other point was that I see it's 2 points. One is to get the rivers cleaner, and the other one is to have monitoring so that we know when it's safe to bathe. But I just want to think about the other kind of users of the river, you know, the wildlife. Obviously, that knowing whether it's safe to bathe isn't going to affect them. So it seems to, you know, very important that we're cleaning up the rivers for all the wildlife as well as ourselves. You know, that seems to be, I mean, I don't know how many of the various pollutants affect the wildlife, but I'm sure it does. It's not just us, but it seems, you know, so important that the rivers are cleaned for all the users.
That's a really, really valuable point, Roger. And I think, yeah, that's definitely something that's in our, you know, in terms of the lead team of the Friends of the Dart, it's very much in our awareness. It's not just about swimmers going in the water, but it's about the whole ecosystem and the animals and the plants and the health of the riverbanks. And yeah, it's a bigger picture. And ultimately, it's not just about our river, it's about all of the rivers that are, you know, they're the lifeblood of our land and our survival. So I think that's a really important point. I'm not sure what the question was in terms of the rivers being used as sewers and.
No, I just, sorry, just the point whether I just wondered whether rivers are generally getting worse or generally getting better, or whether they had got better. I thought rivers were getting better over the last, 30 years or so, but maybe that's not the case. It was just kind of just a point, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't have the details in my head because my brain doesn't hold figures, but it seems as though there is some pressure being put on water companies to make changes, and it's got to the point. I mean, yeah, I know that the Dart is one of the cleaner rivers.
Yeah, okay, it's fine.
I think around kind of ecosystem, so there's kind of and wildlife and nature in mind. There's some really cool invertebrate testing you can do with an organisation called Wildfish. You might have heard of them. They do lots of wildfly census. They've got a really great program around that. So if that was something as well you were keen to look at around relating to kind of more of the nature around the river, they're a really great organisation to team up with.
Yeah, and there's some incredible organisations doing amazing work, and part of what we've been investing in is putting together the River Dart Action Collective, which has the intention of linking all these groups in Devon, have a relationship with the Dart that are taking positive action. So you'll be able to at some point in the future, you'll be able to go onto the website and see what projects are active, what exactly they're doing, how you can get involved as a volunteer, and what they're discovering.
Great.
So we hope that will be a really helpful input. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you.
Joe.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Excellent. I'm sorry I joined a bit late, so I'm going to ask a question that may have been answered. It's in relation to the Dartington estate. I just wonder how much support there is. Obviously, this is a kind of shared resource. It's something we all care about, as the quality of the water, but also the ecology of the place. I had a weird encounter with a woman who was sawing off a branch by our swimming spot, and it didn't seem that there was a very harmonious relationship with the public and the Dartington estate in terms of the river use. And I just wonder if there's support for what you're doing there, because you've got people who are paid versus people who are doing this as a kind of civilian duty. I'm interested in.
Yeah, I can answer that because I had a meeting with them the day before yesterday, and they're very much up for working alongside us, with the community, and it feels like what I was hearing is there's a lot of their in the background. What's been bubbling away is a real focus on swimmers' access and health of the riverbank, and supporting the wildlife diversity and the ecosystem on the estate. So that's a conversation that's in progress, and I feel very positive about.
Good, that's good to hear. And I also
don't know who the woman was sawing off the branch.
I know I could get the name for you, but I also want to join everybody to say, look, it's all very well for us to be mortified, but I really appreciate the people such as yourself and various others who've really put their skills into action. Thank you.
Thank you. Emma.
Hiya. Yeah, sorry, I also joined late. Excuse me. I just wanted to say hello. I'm Emma McGee. I work for the Environment Agency. I'm a catchment coordinator, not a water quality expert, not in regulatory enforcement. So I can certainly take away questions and do my best with them. But I just wanted to say hello, say that I work with Nigel and West Country Rivers Trust and a lot of the other groups that have spoken up, and Kirsty, and so if you need a contact at the Environment Agency, I'm more than happy to be that person. From an individual perspective, I really support what you guys are doing here, and from a professional perspective, I'm involved in some of the work that the trial with South West Water is undergoing, along with many of the people here present on the call who I know in a professional capacity. So I was just sticking my neck above the parapet to say hello.
Great.
And
thank you so much.
If you need me.
Thank you so much, Emma. It's really good to meet you. And I'll put my my email in contact, and it'd be good to be in touch.
Sure.
Anybody else here? Martin.
Hi, thank you very much for organising this. I've just become something called the environmental lead for the South Ham Society. This has been a fast track exercise for me in trying to get to grips with what this water and sewage issues are. Thanks very much for all the work you've done on it. I really just wanted to, just sort of say hello and express those thanks. But over and beyond that, I'm very interested in the data that they're proposing to put on the website. In a sense, we could spend the next couple of weeks speculating as to what will be there. Mm-hmm. But if what they're going to do is put on the data that Thames Water there's been a sort of a thumbing of a brouhaha in London and up country about the data that Thames Water are putting on, which is a sort of effectively a continuous event duration monitoring. So every time they open a storm overflow, it comes up in live terms, and it tells you how long. Now, that's good so far as it goes, but what it doesn't do, and I'm very wary of the fact that there are people on this call who know a lot more about this than me, but in case there aren't, I mean, what it doesn't measure is volume. It doesn't actually tell us anything about the quality of the water more generally. All it does is tell us, and it is important to know how often the storm overflows are being operated, because they are being operated. If you look at the underlying data, they're being operated for many, many more hours than would be suggested by rainfall events. So really just a way of saying, well, yeah, I'd be interested to see what the data shows and whether it does anything more than give those durations starts and stops, whether it's actually going to tell us anything more about the quality of the water in the rivers.
So it's really good to meet you, Martin. Thank you for being here. And I think the best person to answer this question, if he's still on the call, would be Nick. Nick, are you open to responding to Martin's question? Because Nick will have that exact information.
I don't have the exact information. I have some information. I don't actually know much detail about WaterFit Live and what's actually going to be released on towards the end of this month. All I know, it's not that all I can say, all I know is that it's the start of a process, and it's an important milestone in that process. It won't give you everything that you need to know, but it does signal, the aim is that it signals the intent to share this information and information like this in a new way that hasn't been done before. If it is event duration monitoring that's put onto the website initially, then you're right, it does just give you an indication of when a certain discharge is spilling. There is a lot of work going on in the background to try and work out how this data can be interpreted and how it should and could be communicated and disseminated to people who are interested in it. There's a huge amount of modelling work going on to try and translate spill duration into volumes, and obviously trying to relate that to the impacts on water quality. It's just one piece of the jigsaw that they're trying to put together, which is what is the information that's most useful for people out there in terms of in relation to what they want to do. If you want to swim in the river, if I wanted to swim in the river at Dartington, I would be interested in the water quality or some indication of risk around water quality at that point on the river. Event duration monitoring is a part of that, but it doesn't tell me what I need to know, because it doesn't tell me what the risk is. And there are all sorts of risks in terms of water quality that could be brought to bear on a particular location on the riverbank at any particular time, and CSOs are just one part of that. So I think see it for what it is, which is the start of a process, and it's a really positive sign. I think, again, from a West Country Rivers Trust perspective, it's a really positive sign that we're starting to see the data coming out. The data that Paul showed, I think, has huge potential. It's raw data. What Paul's looking at, it's not that useful. It's very hard to interpret. You need to be a water quality specialist in order to interpret and understand that data. But there are water quality specialists who are looking at it and trying to work out how can we take this data and turn it into information that has real value to stakeholders, swimmers, whoever they may be in our catchments alongside our rivers. So that's all I can really say. I don't know the details. I've seen on Twitter, like you all have probably, that Susan Davy was meeting an MP yesterday saying that WaterFit Live is coming, and it's very exciting. I think it is. What it actually is and what it will actually be useful for, I think, remains to be seen. But it's a kind of, let's get it out there and see what it looks like and see how people respond, and then work to refine it and improve it collectively with everybody.
It's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, that's what I can say, really.
Thank you. That's really helpful, Nick. Kevin.
Thanks, Hannah. So I think it was in the context, this is a question for you, first of all, perhaps, Hannah, in the context of your meeting with the Dartington estate, you mentioned access to the river. And I was just wondering more broadly, I mean, you listed a load of issues that you're thinking about. So I realized that you've really got your work cut out, but I was wondering if access is on your radar, improving access. And, you know, I'm guessing if it is, you're connected with the local right to roam groups to sort of work on that. I was just wondering if you could say something about that.
We're very much at the beginning of our conversation with Dartington, and
right.
It feels like we're on the same page in terms of how we caretake the land, and we're not necessarily given that we were, if we were allocated bathing designation, we're not necessarily seeing it as bringing in extra hordes of people. And so, you know, the implications are not very different in terms of usage as they are now, which is on the estate is very high. But yeah, we're definitely having those conversations and seeing what's going to work best in terms of access is very much a part of that discussion.
But are you thinking about access at all in other stretches of the river? So, you know, opposite the Sharpham estate, you know, opposite Henbury Woods. You know, all of those sorts of places, which are just, yeah.
There's several sites that are being considered.
Okay. Oh, lovely.
There's 4 different sites that South West Water are looking at on the duration of the river. And as a Dartington person and as someone who swims at Dartington, we've and in discussion with Dartington, we've narrowed it down to 3 sites along the stretch between Totnes, Weir and Staverton.
Yes.
So that and which we choose, which we go for, will be largely based on access in terms of ease of getting into the river, ease of arriving at the river, and but also numbers, you know, how many people are actually using that spot. And yeah, we also, you know, we have to consider the whole picture in terms of the ecology and the wildlife impact.
Thank you.
My pleasure. What time are we on here? Okay, we've got time for one more question if there's anybody. I'm just going to check on the questions that came in and make sure we've covered those. Yes, we have. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. It's really important to me and to Friends of the Dart that the community are involved, and yeah, it's really it's something that's emerged from the community and is for the community. So yeah, really pleased to meet some of you who I haven't met before, and to have you on board. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, Caroline.
Thanks all. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Good to see everyone.